You and I are by design as human beings susceptible to forgetfulness or the diminishment of human achievement, and these are two of the many qualities that can be attributed to what is called having a rainforest mind. Now, having said rainforest mind is generally tied to having some sort of a diagnosed form of anxiety or depression, something that at least 6.5% of all adult Americans will deal with over the course of a year. And you're probably thinking, Nick, why is this information pertinent? Because when it comes to the 2018 NBA playoffs, people forget how freaking bananas it was. This is my way of saying go to a therapist if you forgot. Something that we are also guilty of if we're human beings is we like to draw. We like to draw a lot of things, sometimes pictures, sometimes shapes, but more than anything else, conclusions. A conclusion that we drew in 2018 was that LeBron James was the best player in the world who had just played the best individual season that anyone had ever played in the history of modern basketball. True. Also that the finals sucked. Also true. But let me tell you something, the culmination, the product of what was this great NBA playoffs, while it did stink, let's turn back the clock a little bit. Let me jog your memory. First, we all know this, 2018, before the season even starts, the Cleveland Cavaliers have a gun to their head, and they have to trade Kyrie Irving to the Boston Celtics in exchange for Isaiah Thomas, among other things, but you know where we're going. I like to keep these videos concise. This resulted in a chemistry catastrophe. More on that later. Going into the playoffs, you had a team like the Minnesota Timberwolves making the playoffs for the first time since 2004. Additionally, the Philadelphia 76ers making the playoffs for the first time since 2012. And what became our first indication that, wait a second, is the process really about to work? Is Sam Hinkie a genius? Yes. The Toronto Raptors won 59 games. The Houston Rockets set a franchise record, 65 wins. Wow, impressed. You had a team like Portland, who we thought going into the playoffs was actually kind of a sneaky low pick. Even though they had to get through two buzzsaws, people liked Portland. More on that later. Now, the playoffs start, and San Antonio squeaks into the playoffs for the 21st consecutive year. But this year was weird. Things were different. Why were things so different? What the heck was going on in San Antonio this year? If you remember, because we talk about this a lot. We talk about Kawhi getting traded. We talk about him winning a championship in Toronto. But we don't talk about the why. We don't talk about why he was traded. And you know why I think that is? Because we don't know. We still don't understand. From everything that we know, everything else is just speculative and rumors. There was mistrust between Kawhi and the Spurs medical staff, and now the infamous Uncle Dennis from Kawhi's camp. There was a whole thing, and it was weird. Kawhi was gone. Up until this point, game one in the series, Kawhi had only played 9 games for the Spurs this season. If you want to get Galaxy brain and put your tinfoil hat on, he was dodging Zaza. But nonetheless, that's chalk for the Warriors. Houston wins their first round series. Portland, I said we're going to get back to this. Yeah. And what eventually became the first domino to fall, one of the first, not the first, domino to fall, and Terry Stotts getting fired from Portland recently for 4 first-round exits in 5 years. Drew Holiday clamped Damian Lillard for 4 games harder than anyone's been clamped in the history of basketball ever. No answers for him whatsoever offensively for Portland. And, as Anthony Davis once said, that's all, folks. Philadelphia beats Miami in 5. Wow, the process. Look at you guys. This is so cute. The rookie Celtics are looking real cute, but then we get to the Cleveland Cavaliers and that aforementioned chemistry catastrophe. Yeah, when they had to flip the half of their roster at the trade deadline just 2 months prior. No more Derrick Rose, no more Dwayne Wade, no more Isaiah Thomas. Now it's Larry Nance and it's Jordan Clarkson, and it's weird, but it kind of works and it's kind of fun. The 4-seeded Cleveland Cavaliers go into that 5-seeded Indiana Pacers series. And here's the thing. The series was great. All comes to a head in Game 5. The final 2 possessions of that game were this. Victor Oladipo drives to the basket. LeBron swats it off the backboard with 3 seconds left. What people seem to forget was that it was definitely a goaltend. But I digress, because on the opposite end, LeBron James catches the inbound pass, 1 dribble, bam, right between the eyes, knocks down the 3 at the buzzer. Cleveland goes up 3-2, a commanding series lead. But what bothered me, even as a LeBron stan, was this. The legacy talk on Twitter after that game was it was peak Twitter. It was the quintessential embodiment of what you think would happen after a game where LeBron James just hit a buzzer beat. Oh my gosh, can you built different? I'm never going to forget where I was for this. I'm going to tell my grandkids about that shot. Really? You're going to tell your grandkids? I remember where I was when LeBron James hit a buzzer beater 3 to take a commanding 3-2 series lead in the first round of the playoffs against the 5-seeded Indiana Pacers. That's what you're going to tell your kids? I digress. They move on. Toronto moves on to the second round. Not that much happened in the second round, if I'm being completely honest with you. Oh, yeah, except LeBron just continued to anoint himself as the mayor of what was formerly known as LeBronto. And this is a perfect time to remember that LeBron James made up a basketball move that year that he invented that year and retired it forever. And I don't know why, because his field goal percentage on it was like 150%. So if you don't remember, it was the game-winning shot that he had against Toronto. He did this like 15 times this season, especially in the playoffs. It was that runner that he had going baseline. He would it was like a floater that would just go off the glass, and it was good every single time. The dude straight up never went back to it for the rest of his career up until this point in real life. I still haven't seen that shot. But anyways, Golden State runs through New Orleans. Houston had, I don't remember who, they had Utah, I think. Yeah, they ran through Utah. And then Boston ran through Philadelphia. Yeah, so now we go to the conference finals. Boston Celtics versus the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Houston Rockets versus the Golden State Warriors. Now, if you're a LeBron stan, you're going to say that you weren't scared during that Boston series because they had home court advantage. Their backs were against the wall. That Celtics team looked good. The Cavs were just kind of squeaking along. It was just, you're lying. Stop being retroactive and weird. Now, this series was interesting for a multitude of reasons. It featured a lot of Larry Nance and a lot of Jeff Green. Now, naturally, it also featured a lot of LeBron James. But more than anything else, it featured 4 rookies from Boston. You had Jason Tatum, you had Daniel Tice, you had Jabari Bird, and you had Semi Ojeleye. Don't really know why Jabari Bird gets the nod over Semi, but hey. Now, if memory serves, well, let me let you in on a little secret. If you're new to me as an entity, I don't do research. I don't take notes. So if I'm wrong about things, that's why. Just from memory. Anyways, pretty sure Larry Nance went massive in Game 6. Jeff Green was massive in the closing minutes of Game 7. Jeff Green, the perennial glue guy for over half of the NBA teams for the last almost a decade and a half now. Terry Rozier, scary Terry Rozier, has his coming out party in this series. Jason Tatum, a rookie Jason Tatum dunking on LeBron and after the game being like, I had his poster in my room growing up. Like, this is so wild. It was kind of awesome, actually. Didn't matter. Cavs in 7. They go to their, 4th consecutive NBA Finals, and I think LeBron's 7th. Houston Golden State. Now, this is it. For a large portion of the season, Houston was actually the favorite to go to the finals, even throughout the playoffs, and even during that series, especially when they took a commanding 3-2 lead over the Golden State Warriors, going back to Oracle. Now, by this point, Chris Paul's hamstring had a pretty untimely death. We all know what happened in Game 7. But let me tell you something. The reason it was particularly annoying to me was because we finally, and now at the time, you have to remember, I know that Chris Paul and the Suns are looking like they're probably going to go to the finals right now. I don't have a dog in the fight. I don't know why I care. This was one of the first times in Chris Paul's career that a Chris Paul team didn't maximize itself in the regular season. And we actually saw almost an unlocked version of them in the playoffs, like they could go to the next level. But as is life with Chris Paul, some inexplicable injury happened and derailed the whole thing. Of course, the style of play that Daryl Morey and James Harden co-invented came to a head in Game 7 when they missed 27 consecutive threes. And here's the thing. People like to say, like, well, that style of play doesn't work. They won 65 games. All they had to do was not miss all those threes, and they were going to be in the finals, not choke Game 6. Would have been in the finals. So, you know. The narrative that James Harden will just inexplicably flop against Steph and the Warriors in the playoffs, well, it happened again. You want to talk about the precursor to James Harden, Kevin Martin rolling in his grave. They tried to attack Steph that entire series, and it worked. And it didn't matter in the end. But here's a little fun fact about those conference finals. So there's only 2 other times throughout NBA history that both conference final series went 7 games. That was in 1979 and in 1963. Fun fact about those, as you can imagine, the home teams won in both instances. The interesting part is in 2018, 2 Game 7s, Western Conference and Eastern Conference, the road team won both of them. Golden State and Cleveland, both on the road. Wow, you learned something today. We get to the finals, and we don't need to talk about Game 1. You know what JR did. You know that George Hill missed the free throw. You know that it was one of the greatest individual performances that you had ever seen in your life. Stop lying. It was. But ultimately, we knew that it was over. You know, Kevin Love can throw as many gorgeous outlet passes as he wants. It's not really going to matter because as soon as Game 2 started, the energy was flat. Everything was dead, and it just sucked. It just sucked. The finals sucked. What were the biggest narratives from the NBA Finals that season? Like the culmination, again, of a great playoffs. All these series were so fun. There were so many fun storylines to follow. And then the finals, which I don't care about what part 3 or part 4 of the Warriors and the Cavs in a row. It sucked. And to be honest with you, the Rockets-Cavs probably would have sucked too. But what were the narratives? I'm trying to remember. LeBron showing up after the series ends with the cast on his hand because after Game 1 he punched a whiteboard and shattered his hand. A story that Jordan Clarkson has since corroborated, and he has no reason to lie at this point. So that's interesting. Another one, was that the series that Steph out-rebounded Tristan Thompson for majority of it? I think that was the year before in 2017. Pretty sure that was 2017. That was the year that Steph probably should have won Finals MVP. I think we were all on board with that. I'm pretty sure, if memory serves, I think Steph had Game 1 and Game 2, and then Game 3 and Game 4 was when KD popped off. I think it was something like that. That was it. Like, that was it. That sucked.